because you mentioned at Scunthorpe, you weren't in the luxury of a big team where you could afford these expensive things. So I want to kind of get a bit more into the nitty gritty of kind of what it was like working in the EFL in terms of those budgets, the amount of games, the amount of travel. You mentioned going up to Hartlepool when you were at uni. So just kind of paint a picture for people that maybe don't know how it is as a first team analyst in the EFL.
Yeah, it's tough. Like it's very tough. I think it depends as well. So at Scunthorpe, there was me and Harry. He left. There were interns that were there, and then one of them stayed on. So there was two of us that were there. But even at Rotherham, I was on my own. But we
Mm.
would come against teams in the championship that would have a team of 4 or 5 people, but I was still on my own, and like I was definitely envious of those guys because I was like, what, like you're just like doing post match or you're just doing set pieces. Like I'm doing everything. I'm probably not to like the depth that those guys do it.
Yeah.
But I think when you're down on like the bodies, it's tough. But what makes it harder, of course, is that you have like 50 plus games in a season.
Yeah.
So it's just that turnaround, like the Saturday to Tuesday to Saturday. You sat on the bus for hours going up and down. You're probably doing 90% of your work sat on a bus
Mm.
on a table with some kind of horrendous coffee that you've had, like from the little coffee machine on the bus. So you're limited on resources, you're limited on time, but I think it's a good environment because it forces you to then be creative. It forces you to not worry about any of these external things that aren't having an impact because you have to really narrow it down to what's going to have
Mm.
that impact. So I know we'll get to it. That's like a bit of a difference to the MLS where we've got a lot of resources and more time, and it's how you use it. But yeah, the EFL, yeah, I still look back and think I had amazing experiences, amazing memories, and it's where I cut my teeth. And in my first year at Scunthorpe, there was a member of staff that's said to me like welcome to the club. He's like, this is where you're going to make your mistakes.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not going to make any mistakes. And obviously he was right. He was like pretty experienced. So um yeah, I think the good side though is like at least for me at Scunthorpe, because it's like that uh, smaller team, I would say. And
Mm.
I would say like the culture there is this like smaller like community
Yeah.
team that's like embedded within everything there. And I lived there for 7 years.
Mm.
I felt like pretty close with uh, friends outside that were fans. I was working in a room that was between the changing room and the gym for the players. So I was really close with all the players that we had. And again, we we had relative success there, I would say,
Mm.
where we had like two playoff finishes and we were in the top two in League One for a time against some pretty big teams. And we had players there, that have gone on to captain their teams in the Premier League. If you look at the likes of Ryan Yates and Ivan Toney, so
Mm.
uh, to see what those players were about when I guess they were younger and developing. When I look back now, it's so interesting to look back at that. So it was a good experience, but very tough. And again, I did 2 Christmas days at Glanford Park, so it's wild. But you have to make these sacrifices, I think, to be in the game and give yourself a chance at being successful.